Hi, my name is Roland and welcome to my VectrexRoli show. Today I would like to show you the games I got for my Philips ES2201 video game system from 1975. This is a very early Pong system and quite interesting to see. Even the system is quite primitive for today's standards, it already had interchangeable game cartridges. What is also quite unique is that you plug the controllers into the game cartridges and not the main console. There is hardly any information out there about the system and I've neither found videos nor photos showing it in action. I showed the system in another video and I will link to that in case you have not seen it. I guess it makes sense to watch that part 1 first. I also showed the national branded black and white TV in that video I will use now to play the games. Here we see again the PCB of the game console, and even I did show you that in the first video I did not have enough time to tell you about the tiny potentiometers on that PCB. You can set certain things like distance between the two players, vertical position of the players and stuff like that. I got two consoles, both with minor issues, and I could fix both of them, which was quite easy. One had a cold solder joint and one had a broken battery clip. But then it took me quite some time to play around with the pot settings to get a nice looking picture. Before I'll show you some gameplay, I'll show you again what's in the game cartridges. They did contain a few components like capacitors, resistors, diodes and transistors, so neither just electrical jumper connections like on the Odyssey system, nor game data on ROM like on the Channel F and later game consoles. So this makes the game cartridges quite interesting, and also the fact that the controllers are connected to the cartridge instead of the main unit. As I said, go and watch part 1 first if you haven't seen that already. Now let's have a closer look at the first game that came with the system. As I said in the first video, I own 4 of the 5 game cartridges released, and I'm still looking for someone to sell me the missing game Pilota, which is called Trainingswand in German. That is basically the one-player squash-like version of the game I will show you now. This game here was the back-in game Badminton, and this is a 2-player title. The game is called Federball in German language, so they neither call the game tennis nor Pong. All the games have unique product IDs. This badminton card is labeled ES2211. There was no separate manual for the badminton game made, but they talk about it in the manual for the game console, and that description is quite short as there is not really much to explain. It is just standard Pong, both players try to keep the ball in the game and that's it. On the last page they also mentioned the 4 separate game cartridges you could buy for the system. What is quite funny is that they say here in German "und bald gibt es noch viele mehr", which means something like "and soon there will be much more", but as far as I know only those 4 extra games were released, and after that Philips brought a more modern Pong system to the market. Now I will show you some random gameplay on the screen of my black and white TV. Graphics are very primitive, of course. I guess one reason why there are not many videos or photos out there about those games is that it is quite hard or even impossible to get a picture from that system on more modern TVs. There is no sound and the score is not displayed on the screen, so you have to do that manually with score sliders on the console. I guess if kids played this, there were a lot of possibilities to cheat with those sliders. And I also guess that a manual score counter might ruin the gameplay experience for most modern kids today. The main system does not even generate a halfway line on the screen, and all games consist of only 3 objects. Here we have 2 player blocks and 1 ball. Even all the games are primitive and simple, at least they feel like real video games, so they didn't try to do board games on the screen, like it was the case for the Magnavox Odyssey. With the difficulty knob on the main unit we can change ball speed. The red knobs on the controllers are being used to serve the ball, but you can also cheat when you press the red button during gameplay, the ball bounces back even you didn't hit it. Still, this is a solid version of Pong for what you could get back then in 1975. Now let's have a look at the other 3 games I got for the system, and I'm quite happy that I can also show you the boxes for the games, as they are not that easy to find. Those boxes look all the same, the only difference is one sticker with the German title of the game. It also says elektronische Spiele on the game boxes, which means electronic games. The text on the boxes and in the manuals is in German language, as I got my system and the games from Germany. I know there were also versions in other languages available, and I also have seen system boxes from the Netherlands and Finland on pongstory.com. I will put the link to that webpage in the description text in case you want to check that out. Today, for European releases of products, you often get the same text printed in several different languages, but Philips did one language per country for the system back then, so production costs for doing that must have been quite high. There was the same manual in all boxes, so they printed one single manual for all 4 games you could buy separately for your Philips ES2201 system. I guess this also shows that they really didn't plan to do more games for the system. Sorry that the text is in German only, I don't have the English version and I've not seen any scans in English, so it seems that stuff is really hard to find. The next game I would like to show you is the weakest title of all the games I got, at least in my personal opinion. Here you see the 2-player game ES2215, in German it is called Phantomjagd, and I think the English version is called Ghost Chaser. When you read such a title you might think, wow, you have to chase a phantom, that might be interesting, but unfortunately this is just a simple reaction game. So as I told you, all the games consist of 3 simple objects, so we have again 2 players represented by blocks on the screen, and there is one square which is the phantom or ghost, and when the ghost shows up each player has to press the button to catch the ghost, and then you have to wait some time until the game starts again. If you press the button too early, you cannot catch the ghost anymore during the current game round. In the manual they recommend that you should get 2 points when you're catching a ghost and -1 point when you press the button too early, and the player that gets 20 points first should win, which makes the score sliders on the console pretty useless, as they go only up to 15 points. You can have some fun with that game on a party with friends and lots of beer, but as you use only the red button on your controller, that game gets boring quite soon. Still, I am happy that I also got that game for my collection, and that game was not really working. I could see the ghost square on the screen as a dark grey block, but it never lit up or became white, and I studied the manual over and over again as I did not understand what was going on. Google didn't really help either, as you don't find much information about the system and people don't really show or explain any gameplay. So after some days I came to the conclusion that the game cartridge must be broken, and I thought it would be either a problem with an old capacitor or a cold solder joint on the cartridge PCB, so I opened it up and sure enough it was just a cold joint. I'm glad the cartridge works now and the ghost shows up. It would be interesting to know if the game ever worked back then for the previous owner. Next game is ES2213, Tontaubenschießen is the German title, Skeet Shooting is the English title. This is a simple shooting game and the manual recommends that each player should get 10 shots. The target is moving down on the left side of the screen, and on the right side you control your gun or rifle up and down with controller number 2, and of course you shoot by pressing the red button on controller 2. With the difficulty knob you can set speed, with controller number 1 you can move the target a bit more to the left or right side if you want. If you press the button too early, you cannot trigger a second shot. You can play this as a 2-player game, of course, but you're not changing sides or something like that. Your gun is always on the right side of the screen. The gun always moves also slightly up and down on its own, and I've seen that on both consoles I own. Gameplay is simple and primitive, like it is the case for all games for the system. Still, I like that they managed to implement also at least one shooting game. The last game I will show you is ES2214, Auto Slalom. The English title is Racing. I think the German title is a more accurate description for the game, as it is more a slalom with a car than a real race. You can steer left and right with one controller, and you can also drive forwards and backwards with the other controller, and you can also set the speed of your car. The manual recommends that each player should get 2 minutes of gameplay, and for each crash you should get -1 point. That's a pretty nice game, and this is my favorite game besides badminton. With the difficulty knob you can even control the road with, which adds an interesting component to your gameplay. You can also play this as a 1-player game if you want, so in case you should ever get a Philips ES2201 system, I can recommend that you try to get at least this car slalom game here. And as I said in the first video, you also would need an old TV, as it is very likely that your new TV will not work with such an old pong system. So I hope this video was interesting and entertaining for you, and I hope you also did enjoy seeing a video game system from 1975. You know, it would be funny to see new homebrew titles for the system, as there is no microprocessor built in and all the game logic is completely done in hardware. This would be quite interesting, even you cannot really do that much with only 3 objects on the screen. If you did like this video here, I can recommend that you go and check out my YouTube playlist for obscure game systems, but I show also a lot of other stuff on my channel, like for the Vectrex, Game Boy and PlayStation for example. And also if you want to know the truth about Nintendo Virtual Boy games, beside the whole headache bullshit people on a million other channels talk about, who either don't even own the system or don't know how to use it properly, go and check out my channel. Please like, share and subscribe. Say hello to us also on Facebook and feel free to leave a comment. Thanks for watching.